Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, that one dude for week 5. The video's here, the weekend's here, the schmacks are here. You're letting your shoulders lean. Maybe you went out on a Friday night, or you stayed in and you watched a movie, or you chilled out, you relaxed, you maxed all cool with whoever you wanted to. Doesn't matter. Saturday morning's here. We're a day away from football literally right now when this video releases because we're getting morning football on Sunday. Football for 12 hours straight. How about that? Your wives, your girlfriends, your brothers, your nephews, your sisters, your aunts, whoever your significant other is right now sighs deeply and says, I'm never getting this guy. Not even for breakfast today. We can't even have pancakes today. We can't even have pumpkin pancakes today in the fall because there's football all day long and this motherfucker won't get off the couch. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's all day. It's all time to dominate with the that one dude. We're looking for a leverage play at each position. This best play at each position means factoring in ownership. It does not mean you should play every single player in this video because then you're probably going to be as too different. You're not going to need to be that different. We're trying to find a low-owned, high-upside play that you can roster at each position and pick and choose where you want to go. And let's start it with the quarterback position as we always do. 2 seconds. 2 seconds right now. Subscribe button comes up. Just tap that bad boy for me. I greatly appreciate that. So at the quarterback position, I'm looking at the slate, and this slate's an ugly slate. We've already talked about that in the final thoughts. Not many good quarterback options because they're all on the showdown slates. And we have another game in the morning, so it takes some other quarterbacks, although maybe not the ones that we really want to play, but some other quarterbacks away. So we're looking at this slate, and it's kind of a wasteland. And the 6K range becomes somewhat appealing if you don't want to go all the way up top to Tom Brady or to Kyler Murray because the 6K range is basically then next. It's like Aaron Rodgers at 7,100. But we're looking at a guy today who's coming in at 5% ownership. He's $6,500 and he projects out for over 20 fantasy points for me. And oh yeah, he looks to be in a decent game environment with a very good matchup. This man's name is the Minnesota Vikings quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Yes, Kirk Cousins is not picking up all that much ownership. And he gets a matchup against Detroit in this one. And this matchup versus Detroit is going to be a beneficial matchup. Detroit has not been a good defense at all. They're getting some pressure. We'll give them that. And the Minnesota offensive line is not the greatest. But outside of that, I don't expect Kirk Cousins to be on his back all game. This is not an elite pass rush. If anything, it will be a slight disadvantage, barely on the offensive line, because they're only generating pressure Detroit, although better than expected at still just a 24% clip. And if you're below 30%, it's not that threatening. If you're below 25%, it's definitely not that threatening. And now let's discuss their ranks. Well, they rank 32nd. And yeah, you're right, there's 32 teams, so that is dead last, aka in the dictionary. Dead last Detroit, sad to see you there, is the passing defense for them. And they're 32nd overall in actual defense. When you factor in the running game, the only thing that props them up in some regards is that pass rush that is like league average right now. And they're facing Mr. Kirk Cousins in the number 7 passing attack in the very obvious stacks of his, which I would say right now, the number 1 stack, I think you can single stack him with just the Justin Jefferson. If you want to get Adam Thielen, who is continuously overpriced and relies on touchdowns, but he keeps getting them, go ahead. But I'll go Kirk Cousins with Justin Jefferson. And then if you wanted to double stack it, Tyler Conklin's cheap, and so is KJ Osborne still. But I'm good with just the single stack for GPPs. Run it back on the opposite side with Detroit, and there's some options. Khalif Raymond finds the end zone twice last week. The most obvious options are going to be TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, both coming off of some down weeks. I think those are the guys I would want to focus on. I would go probably more so to DeAndre Swift because we have actual values at tight end this week. We'll talk about one in this video. So that's kind of the way that I want to stack this up. And for a comparison, and I made this tweet, follow me on Twitter at SalVetcherDFS. We just hit 15,000 Twitter followers. How about that? Round of applause. I don't know what that means, but it's just a round number. My teachers in elementary school taught me to count by 5s, 10, 5, 10, 15, 20. So when we land on one of those numbers, 15, 5, 10, 15, right? 5, 10, 15, hey, it looks pretty good. But for a comparison, right now we have a $6,000 Daniel Jones this week. So he's cheaper, and I'm projecting him out for about 20.8 points. And basically the same projection as Kirk Cousins, a little bit more, but basically the same. So same projection, $500 cheaper, and he's coming in with twice the ownership. That's how sensitive people are to pricing. So Daniel Jones is coming in with double the ownership as Kirk Cousins in a very similar game environment, actually versus a better defense, where I would say, yes, he has passing weapons. He does have a cheap Kadarius Toney, and we're assuming that Shepard and Slayton were to miss. If they're in, well then yeah, he has passing weapons, but none of them are cheap. But he doesn't have a secure, yeah, that's the guy, like a Justin Jefferson, who every single week Jefferson's putting up 18 points as like a floor game right now for Minnesota. So I like Kirk Cousins more than Daniel Jones. And then I see, and just because of the price tag, Daniel Jones is coming in with double the ownership, soaking ownership away from Kirk Cousins. Yeah, we really, really like to see that. Now, I'm taking a prop on Kirk Cousins right now. And there's a prop over on Prize Picks, a sponsor of some of these shows, but another sponsor and partner of the show is Underdog. I'm trying to shop lines. I shop as the best line I possibly can find. And the line right now on Underdog, as it comes up on the screen, is Kirk Cousins over 269.5 passing yards. I take the over on that. I got him in the 280s, like 287 right now. So if you want to use Underdog to get this specific prop, right, if you want to add that to your arsenal to have some books to shop, you could use the code SAL. They'll give you a free $10 when you sign up over there. The prop is also available on Prize Picks, but it is a little bit higher, so I just want to let you know where the best line is for Kirk Cousins. But things are looking nice for Cousins. He plays on the team that is number 8 right now in passing yards. He currently has a 28 team implied total. That is one of the highest. It is right now the 4th highest total on the slate, and it's just going overlooked. And yeah, Dalvin Cook is banged up. Dalvin Cook, as of this recording on Friday morning, we'll see if he practices Friday. He might be ruled out by the time you're seeing this. He has not been practicing. And yes, Alexander Mattison can step in for a close to 1-to-1 replacement, believe it or not, but that's going to stress a little bit more on the passing game for Kirk Cousins to get it done, who's already throwing 39 times per game and averaging 280.3 yards per game, which is over that 269 number over on Underdog. So that is where I'm at right now on Kirk Cousins. He is that one dude at the quarterback position. Let's slide on a late night now into the running back position. To the running back position we go, and this is going to be a guy who is going to be expensive, and that's why he's going to be a little bit lower owned. It's $7,900 Aaron Jones, who I'm projecting out as a great play. 18.2 fantasy point projection at just 4% ownership. Now, why is he coming in like that? Well, people are running all the way up to the elite matchup for one Derrick Henry, which makes sense, but Derrick Henry is $9,000, but they're still running up to him, soaking away ownership from Alvin Kamara, who I think comes in around 10 or 12%, and soaking a ton of ownership away because Kamara still will pick up some ownership, having a big game last week, even without the targets. We would expect him to see targets. He's a big part of that offense there. It's not just like those are going to go away. He had 14 targets in his first 4 games, so I would expect at least some targets to come, but it's soaking away the ownership from Aaron Jones because then the 7K range at the lower end, the Zekes, the Saquons, the guys that we've been playing here the last 2 weeks on the channel and smashing left and right, they still look good, but they're soaking up 10 to 15% ownership. Like right now, Aaron Jones, I have, as you can see, the tweet that I made, again, follow me over there, some nice tweets over there. I have Aaron Jones currently right now for similar fantasy points, actually more fantasy points than Saquon, basically the same, but Saquon is $600 cheaper. So there is a decent price difference there, but it's $600. Like you can find that in your defense or your tight end just by paying down. And Saquon is coming in right now with about 14 to 15% ownership. So Saquon is looking like he's going to be 3, maybe even 4 times as owned as Aaron Jones as of the recording of this video. And I understand the price is a little bit cheaper, but that is extreme. Does Saquon Barkley beat Aaron Jones at these price points 3 or 4 times the amount of the times? No, that's why there's a leverage play here in Aaron Jones, depending on how you're building your lineups. If you don't even want to play expensive running backs this week and just chill in the 6K and 5K range because there's so many good plays, check out the final thoughts and the values video that we released earlier in the week. But then, yeah, that makes sense. But if you do want to go up there, this is a nice way to get different with it. And now he's coming in just a nice environment. He's a 3-point favorite. He has a 27 team implied total in this one, 3.5-point favorite depending on the books that you're looking at. He's seeing 17.5 opportunities per game, and he has 15 red zone opportunities so far. That is the 3rd highest on this slate. It's a good spot. He's barely seeing 8-man fronts either because they're playing a lot of 2 high safeties against Aaron Rodgers. You saw it on the Monday Night Football, Peyton Manning and Eli Manning talking about it, but it's happening in every single game. So when that happens, when you have 2 guys back, you're seeing like these soft fronts. You're basically seeing 6-man fronts a lot of the time, rarely ever seeing stacked boxes. And with Aaron Jones' talents and also his ability in the receiving game, oh yeah, you know, the 3 receiving touchdowns in one game earlier this year, there's a lot of upside here. We know Aaron Jones has a ceiling, and this ownership is not accounting for anything, not even his median projection, let alone his slate-breaking ceiling against Cincinnati. And that matchup against Cincinnati is good. I have it right now in the matchup notes on Patreon. You can check out Patreon, join the community, 900 Patreon members in the Discord. We have a lineup optimizer now we built. We have also projections, rankings, ownership, everything you need to basically smash the slate. Matchup notes. He has a positive, according to the matchup notes, a positive 23% run blocking advantage this week against Cincinnati, who ranks bottom 5 in yards allowed before contact. Cincinnati is allowing 1.88 yards before contact. And now you get Aaron Jones, who's elusive, who's fantastic, who comes in right now playing on an average run defense, but is going to get a matchup against a team that is just giving up a ton of yards before they even touch you or attempt to tackle you. So I think this is a good spot for Aaron Jones. If you wanted to get exposure to this game, it's an interesting spot to leverage off of Adams, who will probably come in 4 or 5 times as owned. And I have 2 props for Aaron Jones right now. The first one is going to be over on Prize Picks. You can see it popping up. You want to use the code SAL. You get a free bet up to $100. Simple as this. You want a free bet up to $100? Use the code SAL. PrizePicks.com. You type it into the URL. PrizePicks.com. Sign up button. Put your info in. Takes 5 seconds. Put the code SAL in. Bam. You get a free bet up to $100. I take the over 16 fantasy points on Aaron Jones as I have him at 18.2. And now there is a nice prop over on Underdog as well. This one is the combined. They don't offer this on Prize Picks. The combined rushing and receiving yards over 89.5. I have this number for Aaron Jones right now well over this number. I have him around the 97, 98 mark right now in terms of yardage. So we take the over his total yards on Underdog, use the code SAL for $10 there, the over 16 fantasy points on Prize Picks, code SAL gets you a free $100 bet, and bam, you're smacking it around. You got your props secured, bada bing, bada bang. Even if you don't want to play Aaron Jones in DFS because you're worried about the price tag, this is a nice way to get exposure to another place where his price and his props are inefficient. And now to the wide receiver position. I'm looking at a guy who is number 3 in the NFL in air yards, but number 2 in unrealized air yards, meaning that a lot of his targets so far this year, and a good amount of them are actually catchable air yards, they're just barely missing. But right now, he's getting targeted way downfield. He should have had a touchdown last week, and he would be probably 6,500 instead of 5,500. He was barely overthrown. And that man's name at $5,500 is Courtland Sutton. I'm projecting him out for nearly 15 fantasy points, 14.8 at just 4% ownership. Courtland Sutton is the alpha on his team. There is no KJ Hamler, sadly. There is no Jerry Jeudy still, sadly. He is by far the alpha on his team. And whether it's Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, it's trending to be Drew Lock. I don't care. They both have the ability, and Drew Lock even more so as a YOLO ball player, to chuck the ball downfield. Now, the concerning thing is that there's only a 19.5 team total here, but they're massive underdogs, right? They're expected to lose this game by a good amount, so that gives me a nice ability to feel comfortable in the fact that they'll be in a throw-first script. And you're getting Sutton already averaging 7 targets per game. And you're getting Sutton averaging 41% right now. He's had so far through the first 5 games. 41% of his team's air yards. Again, there's no Hamler out there. Again, there's no Jeudy. He's getting everything downfield right now. It's 17.3 air yards per target. Only Odell has a higher number, and Odell obviously has a small 2-game sample right now on air yards per game, and it's barely higher. So Sutton right now is a man who everything is clicking. He's getting open. He's getting the targets. They're just not connecting. This is going to change. You saw it change last week with Stephon Diggs getting the deep balls to finally connect and having a good game. You saw it 2 or 3 weeks ago with MVS getting the deep balls to connect and then finding the end zone. When the air yards are there, the stats are going to slowly follow through. You saw it with DJ Moore against the Cowboys, right? He was getting a bunch, or 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, getting a bunch of air yards, but it wasn't paying off too much. And I think you're going to see it very soon, and we hope this week at $5,500 for Sutton. And now for a comparison, I love this guy. Antonio Brown, he's great this week. He might be the wide receiver 1 on his team on what could potentially be the best stack of the week, and he's only $5,200. We talked about that on the Final Thoughts video. At $5,200, though, I have him projecting out for basically the same points, 15.2. You can see the tweet on the screen at just 10% ownership. So he's going to come in double, maybe more, the ownership than Courtland Sutton for basically the same play just because he's $300 less and he has a sexier name. I'm not shocked to see Courtland Sutton put up 25 fantasy points this week to Mr. Antonio Brown's 14 or 15, right? Courtland Sutton is a strong ceiling play as well, and that makes him a very good leverage play this week. It is a tougher matchup, right? He'll see matchups against guys like Cam Sutton and this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I get it. It's a very tough matchup, but that is all factoring into why he's low owned. I'm taking the over on Prize Picks right now. Courtland Sutton, 52.5 receiving yards. I like that number. I have him right now for around 68 receiving yards. And then you hope for the touchdown, of course, in fantasy reasons. But 68 receiving yards, massively over this number. We take that on Courtland Sutton as we slide into the tight end position. And as we slide into this position again, please do hit the like and subscribe button. And remember the code SAL if you want to go get that Courtland Sutton prop. Gives you a free bet up to $100 Ruski. So, tight end position. There's a lot of good values. The obvious elephant in the room is that Ricky Seals-Jones, as of this recording, he's 6% owned. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get to 10% owned. This is not going to be that one dude, Ricky Seals-Jones, because he's kind of owned at the tight end position. He might be a top 3 owned tight end. He's 2,500, ran 31 routes last week. There's no Logan Thomas. They want to continuously use the tight end in this offense. That's kind of the anchor of this offense. So Ricky Seals-Jones, who saw 4 targets last week, now is a week to practice with the ones. He looks like a solid option. So it's not going to be him. If you want to play him, though, you want to play 100% of him, go for it. I'm not against that. So Dan Arnold, though, at $2,900, I'm projecting out for about less than a point less than Ricky Seals-Jones. So Dan Arnold is $400 more than Ricky Seals-Jones. I'm projecting him out for about 7 fantasy points compared to Ricky Seals-Jones 7.5. But Dan Arnold comes in at 1%. And as of this recording, I have Ricky Seals-Jones at 6% owned. But I'm not shocked to see that number go to 8 or 9%. So there's a good chance that you're going to see 8 times as much ownership, and all that ownership in the 2K range and low 3K range soaked to Ricky Seals-Jones. And that is completely fine. I think that is a fine way to go about it if you want to play him. But if you are looking for leverage at the tight end position off of a cheap, chalky tight end, Dan Arnold is an interesting way to go about it. Dan Arnold, again, is a very similar play this week to a Ricky Seals-Jones. I have Dan Arnold for similar fantasy points to guys like Hunter Henry, Max Williams, Tyler Conklin, and all those guys are at least $500 and closer to $1,000 more expensive than him. And the nice thing we have on our side is that people think that Dan Arnold just isn't a good tight end. Look what he did against Cincinnati on Thursday night. He only caught 2 balls for 29 yards on 2 targets. I see that, and I'm encouraged. In that game, he joined the team on Monday last week, right? So he joins the team on Monday just to walk through. Tuesday he practices. Wednesday they travel to Cincinnati from Jacksonville, and then Thursday's the game. He just got traded to this team. He had no time to practice. He only played 36% of the snaps, right? I expect him to play the James O'Shaughnessy role in this offense, which is a much more involved player, and that's what you saw out of O'Shaughnessy for the very small sample that we got of basically one game before he got hurt early in the second game for Jacksonville. O'Shaughnessy in that first game played 85% of the snaps. If you throw Dan Arnold into an 80 to 85% snap role, more than double what he saw last week, he's going to see 5 or 6 targets. And 5 or 6 targets at $2,900 is pretty damn good. Now, I don't see any props out there for Dan Arnold on Prize Picks or Underdog because he's a fucking tight end and not really an exciting one that people talk about all that often. But if you see any props out there on Dan Arnold over receptions, if the number's set at like 1.5, smash the over on that. I think that Dan Arnold is going to find himself this game seeing a minimum of 4 targets with the upside of somewhere around 6 or 7 targets. He's going to be much more involved now that he actually knows this offense and knows all the concepts that a tight end needs to know, which is a lot. Run blocking, pass protection, play action game, actual routes run, all that stuff. It's very hard for a tight end. Or the only harder position on offense is probably the quarterback in terms of knowing everything you have to do. Wide receivers, they just know the route progressions or blocking on run plays. Running backs, you just hit the hole. It's all about instincts. Tight ends, you have to know a whole lot of shit. They should be paid more. So there's a potential leverage play at tight end, and as we always do now, we finish up with our 1% owned flyer. And now there's one less game on the slate, so the ownership starts to become less 1% owned guys. So this guy might come in at like 2% ownership, and I was going to make it Henry Ruggs, but he's just so overpriced at $5,600. Can he catch a deep touchdown like week 2? Sure, but he's just so damn overpriced right now. But the 1% owned guy, and don't be shocked if he's 2% owned, is going to be $5,900 DeVonta Smith. I have him projected for about 12.5 fantasy points, and I have him coming in right now at 1% owned. Again, I'm not shocked if it's 2%. Smith right now is number 7 in the NFL with 46% of his team's air yards, and he's seeing 7.8 targets per game. That's a lot of good value at just $5,900. Again, I do prefer Sutton right now. Sutton's actually picking up more ownership, 4 or 5 times more, but Smith is still a solid play. I mean, your finishes so far from Smith this year, and you have week 4 against Kansas City in a bad passing defense, 19.2. He's the wide receiver 12. Week 1, his first ever game in the NFL, top 20 receiver against Atlanta. Then he actually faces some good defense. San Francisco before they lose Emmanuel Mosley and all their other cornerbacks. Dallas with Trevion Diggs, who's looking like a superstar. Those guys both hold him down to below 10 fantasy points. So what is the matchup this week? Well, it's going to be Carolina. Carolina that does seem to be struggling without J.C. Horn out there, right? They lose Horn 2 weeks ago. They trade for C.J. Henderson. They just trade for Stephon Gilmore, but Stephon Gilmore can't play. He's on the PUP list. He can't play until week 6, I believe, or after week 6. And C.J. Henderson is not a great player. He's a top 10 overall pick a year ago, and he's already traded. There's a reason why, because he's not that great of a player. So I think this is actually a sneaky good matchup. You saw that get exploited a little bit last week on limited pass attempts, only 22 by Dallas. I think it gets a little bit exploited here, and I think that DeVonta Smith is going to have a positive advantage against whoever he plays. Probably Dante Jackson will try and keep up with him. A speedster in Dante Jackson goes on. A speedster like DeVonta Smith makes some sense. So DeVonta Smith, for comparison reasons, Odell right now, who maybe is a flop lag from last week, is $100 more, projecting out for basically the same fantasy points for me, but he's coming in at 5% ownership. So right now, I'll take DeVonta Smith over Odell for the leverage you're getting. But if there was a prop to take, I'm going to pull this up on Prize Picks, and hear me out here. I'm taking the under 5 receptions on DeVonta Smith. The over 5 receptions just seems way too much for me right now. I think the under 5 receptions makes a lot of sense. Now, in games where DeVonta Smith does go off, these are his receptions, 7, 3, 2, and 5, and 6 so far. So there's a concern here. And you don't have to take this prop. I'd probably lean not to take it overall if you really wanted to, but there is a way to leverage yourself against this. If you're playing a 1% owned play on DFS, you can go ahead and you can take the under. So if he does go off, you're happy because on DFS he's smashing for you. He's the reason why you're moving up so much. And so what? You lost your $25 prop. But at this price point of $5,900, there's also a way that this pays off you. I mean, there's a 4-catch, 75-yard and touchdown game, and that's 17, 18 fantasy points at this ownership and price point. That can pay off for you. So you can kind of catch the middle, if you know that betting term, catch the middle on this number, or you can leverage yourself in a way that, okay, either the 1% play doesn't go off and I at least win my prop, or it does go off and, hey, I lose my prop, but this guy's winning me a lot more money than that prop. So it's kind of middling the number. I think this is an interesting spot to do it. If this was 4.5 receptions, we take the over, we feel good. But at 5 receptions, you need it to go to 6 or more, and that's where I'm a little bit uncomfortable. So that's where I would lean right now. The under DeVonta Smith, that code SAL gets you the free bet. You can use all these ones you've seen up to $100 on Prize Picks, or the Underdog ones as well if you want to try that out. Use the code SAL. SAL any way you want. SAL any way you want. You get the free dollar keys to take your bets. So there we go. There's that one dude at each position. There's a 1% on, maybe 2% on flyer play. I appreciate you tuning into this here video. All the content is out for the week. The only thing left is the Sunday stream and the Sunday night football video. So that stuff is going to come out later in the day and on tomorrow, obviously on Sunday. But everything else is out. The values video is out. The first look is out. The final thoughts, and now that one, dude, they're all out. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. And also, if you're here right now and you're not, make sure you double check. Make sure your brother, your mother, your sister, your aunt knows to hit the subscribe button. I greatly appreciate that. I'll see you on the next one, gang. See you tomorrow, Sunday. Tomorrow is Christmas morning. Today is Christmas Eve because we got football in the morning. And hey, I know football knows me. See you in the next one.